Good evening. Welcome to the September 2nd City Council meeting, also known as Councillor Nash's birthday meeting, and a happy belated birthday to Councillor Thorpe. I'm Jean-Louise Shara. I'm the City Council President, and I will be presiding this evening. This meeting and all participating on Zoom will be audio and video recorded. We'll begin with public comment. Then after public comment, we'll convene the meeting. If you wish to make public comment, please use the raise hand feature. It's either at the bottom menu bar under reactions or it's at the bottom of the participants panel, which you get to by clicking on participants at the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by hitting *9. If you're having trouble raising your hand, you may use the chat feature to send a message to me to ensure equal access. And because of open meeting law, technical problems such as not being able to raise your hand are the only thing the chat function is used for, and it'll only be used during public comment. We cannot accept comment or commentary over chat. Private chat or chat only visible on Zoom during a public meeting is antithetical to an open public process, in violation of the council rules for public participation, and violates the spirit and potentially the law of open meeting law. If you want to submit a written public comment, please email it to citycouncil@northamptonma.gov, and it'll be sent to all councilors and will be part of the public record. I'll unmute each raised hand in the order in which it's been raised. Please state your name and city or town for the record. To ensure everyone has an equal opportunity to speak, the council limits comments to 3 minutes. You're in no way obligated to use the full 3 minutes, but if you do, after 3 minutes, I'll ask you to please finish your sentence. According to council rules, we do not respond during public comment, as is your time to speak. So while your comments should be directed to us, you'll understand when we don't respond to you. Our rules also state that councilors and members of the public shall conduct themselves with civility and respect at all times. Your protected speech is a constitutional right, and one that we ask you to wield with consideration and with respect for all, and with recognition that the public space that grants you that freedom is shared equally by everyone. Also, in open meeting law, if someone's disrupting a meeting, they may be removed. You may speak on any topic. It doesn't need to be an item on the agenda. I'll ask that all but the council turn off your video until called upon. Only the person recognized has the floor, and all comments are to be directed at the council. This meeting can be watched on channel 15 or by streaming Northampton Open Media's YouTube channel or on their other platforms. And the recording of this meeting will be available at Northampton Open Media's Government Video Archive channel on YouTube. I thank them, as always, for that public service. So we will now open up to public comment. Let me just check the chat. All right, seeing no hands, I will ask Laura to please take the roll.
Councillor Dwight.
Here.
Councillor Foster.
Here.
Councillor Jarrett.
Here.
Councillor Labarge. Councillor Labarge? I think you're muted.
Oh, you're muted.
Here.
Councillor Maori.
Here.
Councillor Nash.
Here.
Councillor Quinlan.
Here.
Councillor Shara.
Here.
And Councillor Thorpe.
Here.
Madam President, you have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm just pulling up my agenda. And the first item that we have is a public hearing. So this is a public hearing on the administrative order. Northampton City Council will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 2nd, 2021 at 7:05 p.m. That's actually accurate for once. City Council will consider proposed amendments to the City of Northampton Administrative Code Part 1 Administrative Organization Section 2.04 Office of the City Clerk. I will, would you want to hearing, and then I will read the administrative order.
Move to open the public hearing, please.
Second that.
Motion been made by Councillor Dwight, seconded by Councillor Labarge. Any discussion on opening the hearing? Seeing none. Please on opening.
Councillor Dwight.
Yes.
Councillor Foster.
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councillor Labarge.
Yes.
Councillor Maori.
Yes.
Councillor Nash.
Yes.
Councillor Quinlan.
Yes.
Councillor Shara.
Yes.
And Councillor Thorpe.
Yes.
Okay, the hearing is open. I'm just going to I'll read the letter from the mayor and the order, which is incredibly brief. And then we will proceed. So this was dated August 17th, 2021. This is to the honorable members of the City Council. Pursuant to my authority under Article 6, Section 6-1 of the City Charter, I'm respectfully submitting the attached administrative order removing the reference to the city clerk as an elected official in section 2.04 of the administrative code in order to align it with the recently enacted changes to the city charter. As you know, change from an elected to an appointed city clerk was among the many recommendations put forward to the city council and mayor in 2019 by the Charter Review Committee and ultimately sent to the state legislature as special act amendments to our city charter. On Friday, August 13, 2021, Governor Baker signed into law Chapter 40 of the Special Acts of 2021, an act amending the charter of the city of Northampton. With our charter amendments now complete, this proposed administrative order will bring the administrative code into conformity with the city charter. Thank you in advance for your review of these proposed changes to the administrative code. I stand ready to answer any questions, provide additional information, and respectfully request the city council's approval of the attached order. Sincerely, David J. Narkowitz, Mayor. And the order is, Laura, I don't know if you'd be able to put it up really quickly. It's
Sure.
amend City of Northampton Administrative Code, Part 1, Administrative Organization, Section 2.04 as follows. 2.04, Office of the City Clerk established. There shall be an office of the city clerk under the supervision of a city clerk, and we are striking elected by the voters of Northampton. That is the order, administrative order. Okay, and Mayor Narkowitz, you're here to talk about your order.
I think the letter is fairly self-explanatory. Obviously, this was not only a recommendation of this most recent charter review committee, it was actually a similar recommendation was made back in 2011, 2012, although that didn't end up making it into the charter change in 2012. But this was a unanimous recommendation of the Charter Review Commission. It was adopted unanimously by the City Council. It took the legislature a little while to actually get the bill adopted, and the governor signed it into law. So now this is part of our charter, and so this is really just cleaning up the administrative code to make it reflect what the charter reflects. And then if and when this gets adopted, then the next piece of work would be I will submit a formal appointment to you of a city clerk appointee for you to confirm.
Thank you. So this is a hearing. Are there any other proponents or people who'd like to speak in favor of this change to the code? Feel free to raise your hand. So it's the same process for raising your hand as with public comment. So look under reactions or under the participant panel if anyone would like to raise their hand and speak to this. Is there anyone who would like to speak against this as an opponent to this change? Councilors, do you have questions or comments? Want to weigh in? Councillor Dwight.
I see that Stan Moulton is here. Stan was the chair of the Charter Review Committee, and with Vice Chair Sam Hopper. And is Pam here? Can't tell if Pam Powers is here, but
I do not see Pam.
But the mayor is right about the historical arc of this. And in fact, it's been a recommendation for a while. We're one of the outliers in the state of Massachusetts as far as having a professional city clerk's office as opposed to an elected city clerk's office. That's not to say that the people who all served as city clerks for the city of Northampton were not professional, but they were elected, and there is an intrinsic problem in that. Insofar as one, job security is not great, right? Every other year, just as counselors, you would have to set yourself to trying to get reelected. The fact is that impedes or affects the ability to plan out long term. It also doesn't, it means that you don't necessarily have to be qualified to become a city clerk. And there have been candidates that I think I can candidly say who are eminently not qualified. And this position is way too important to give over to a popularity contest. And more, elections are critical, and the people's voices is an essential part of this, the way we govern ourselves. It is the nature of democracy. But the other irony here is this professional office presides over those elections. It puts a city clerk in an awful position of presiding over their own election, which is an embedded conflict that the state really is never satisfied and never figured out what's the best way to deal with it. Pam did not advocate one way or the other during the course of this, but the fact is she provided some very useful information and was a great service to us on this. And I look forward to actually seeing her name pop up again personally in when the mayor comes before us again, asking to appoint under the authority granted to him in this administrative order. So anyway, that's essentially the story. That's the pushback there. When it was originally suggested, it was deemed politically expedient not to include it in the vote for charter, because that was the most divisive issue, and the concern was it might have jeopardized the vote for the support of the charter, and rather than lose the very important changes that were made, the recommenders had decided that maybe this is an issue to be addressed at a later date. And here we are at that later date.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Labarge.
Yes, thank you. If I can recall when George Zimmerman was a treasurer elected, and then I remember when our mayor at that time, Mary Claire Higgins, went to him and had talked with him about going from elected to non-elected. And he was very willing to do that because it made sense to do it. Because that way they had the treasurer's office, George Zimmerman, and we had our financial director, and it was all combined together. So that did happen. So just recently with the Charter Commission, I went to speak, and so did Wendy Mosna, about my concern was what the qualifications were, which I did speak at that Charter Commission, was to be 18 years old, a resident of Northampton, and a high school diploma. That is it. That was it. And that's important here because just anybody, like Councillor Dwight was just saying, could just go ahead and put in for, and it could be somebody who is very liked in the city and could get that job and not have any type of experience at all. So I think this is the right way to go, and I agreed with that. And I'm happy to see this happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Just very briefly, I wanted to echo the gratitude Councillor Dwight expressed. I saw Stan here and wanted to express my own gratitude for the hard work of the Charter Review Commission. When I mentioned this at council a long time ago, maybe a year and a half ago, when we were discussing this as a council for the first time after the commission's recommendations. And I was initially uneasy with the recommendation to sort of remove some public input in any process. But the Charter Review Commission made a very strong case, and you know, I certainly understand the benefits of the city clerk position being an appointed one rather than an elected one. I won't reiterate all of the points, but I'm grateful for the hard work of the volunteers and our council representative who took that process on. And so I look forward to supporting this change tonight.
Thank you for sharing that. Councillor Quinlan.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask the mayor, outside of the great points that Councillor Dwight just made for us that came out of all the research, I wonder if there's anything else that you see in terms of chain of command. And I realize that you're less than 4 months here, but what you see as chain of command and what else you see as other points that are really positives about this, just in terms of the operation of City Hall.
I think Councillor Dwight hit on a lot of the points that we've talked about. I think at last count of the almost 50 cities in Massachusetts, now with Northampton switching to appointed, I think there's now only 4 cities left that have an elected city clerk. So we were clearly in the minority. And really, I think in terms of chain of command, I don't think there'll be much of a change. I mean, I've always worked well with, I tried to work well with the city clerks, and they have a department, they have staff who of course aren't elected, and they're just like all of our other staff. And we have regular department meetings and budget meetings, and talk about capital requests. And so for all intents and purposes, they've functioned like a department head. But I do think that, I think particularly the points about just the professionalism of the office. And, when we originally did the charter change back in 2011, 2012, I think one of the more compelling pieces of information, and I think this applied to the treasurer position, and it applied to other, positions like assessor and others that have been elected over time, is that there is a distinction between a policymaker, someone who makes policy, like the council, like the school committee, and somebody who's really carrying out the law, enforcing laws, and carrying out election laws, carrying out the storage of vital records, carrying out the public records and open meeting laws. And so, and even carrying out elections. I mean, that's all prescribed by either state law or by the charter. And so, for so many reasons, I think this is really the way to go. And also, actually, another piece of this I would point out is that the city clerk functions like a department head, but because they're elected, they get a fixed salary that's set by ordinance. So they don't get regular cost of living adjustments like their peers who work in all the other offices in City Hall. They don't accrue vacation time. They don't accrue sick time. They don't accrue any of those things. The mayor doesn't either, but obviously I'm in a slightly different position. But that is also one of the disadvantages for someone who, for all intents and purposes, functions like a department head, and supervises appointed, staff who are union members, but doesn't get all of the same treatments within the paying classification system as the other department heads. So I think that'll also be important as well. And in the future, to try to attract, if there needs to be a replacement in the future. Again, the other thing that came up, actually, I think it was one of the interesting things that I think may have even swayed the former city clerk a little bit about this, because when the former city clerk stepped away and retired, it became clear that in order to be the city clerk, you had to be a resident of Northampton. And our assistant at the time was not a resident of Northampton, so they were disqualified. So also just seeking candidates for the position, I think it gives you more options in terms of, being able to draw from a slightly larger regional pool of qualified candidates. And, we know that as fun as municipal government is, it's been challenging, as people have aged out of municipal government, that there's not as many folks coming up behind them in a lot of these fields, particularly in finance and some of the other fields. So I also think from a future recruitment standpoint, it has this advantage of not having it tied to the elected must be a resident role. So you may have someone who's eminently qualified, who's an assistant clerk in East Hampton or Hadley, and is ready to move up and could be hired and move into that role. So that's another example, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Speaking of candidates, I'll be waiting on pins and needles to see who you proffer. But isn't it a lovely position to be in, to have someone that the people of Northampton have already chosen?
Exactly, and I intend to carry out the same precedent that we did with the treasurer position. That Mayor Higgins, the charter was changed and the position was changed from elected to appointed, and the incumbent was appointed. So I fully intend to continue that tradition.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Dwight, then Councillor Jarrett. Actually, Councillor Jarrett first, and Councillor Dwight.
Thank you. Mayor, when will this take effect? I mean, does Clerk Powers have to fulfill her term as elected by the voters and it takes effect in January 1st? Or is it just when the whenever we confirm the appointment?
The special act that was adopted by the legislature took place immediately upon enactment. So it is effective now. It did not take effect at the end of the term, or it was effective immediately. So she's in a little bit of a limbo right now. She obviously was elected, but that's why we're making this change. So it goes into effect immediately. I mean, back in November of 2012, when the last charter was adopted, the last meeting in October of the city council, I chaired the city council meeting. I was the mayor, and the mayor used to chair the city council meeting. And come November, I was no longer the chair. Right, immediately after the election, we separated and immediately effectuated the change. So yeah, she will become an appointed clerk as soon as the appointment comes forward and goes through your process and the appointment happens. And again, she did put her name forth on the ballot just to be safe in case there was some kind of a snafu at the state level and this didn't get passed in time. But she will be able to. And as Councillor Dwight said, there is a challenge, particularly with city clerks. There isn't an exemption for under ethics laws around running elections on which you're in the ballot. So it would also clear that up for this election as well. Not that there was anyone running against her; she was running unopposed. But anyway, so yeah, it will go into effect as soon as the appointment is confirmed by the city council.
Thank you.
Councillor Dwight.
Just an expansion on the salary issue is the city clerk, as past city clerks have discovered, are reliant on us to forward the pay raise. We have to approve it. And that's a political hot potato. If you, I don't know if any of you remember when we were discussing actually council compensation, or enfolded in that was conversation also about the salary for all elected officials, including the clerk. So it became a political issue without a lot of political coverage behind it. So you can be stuck without, as the mayor pointed out, without any COLAs, cost of living increases, without any other flexibility. You're literally subject to the whim of the body that approves your increase, and they are political animals foremost. I mean, people would be concerned that would be an inappropriate expenditure. This way, the clerk is enfolded into the HR protocols and requirements under state law and under municipal guidance, and it is far more just and also provides a little more comfort in whoever fills the position in their prospects for the future.
Thank you.
My question.
Sure, Councilor Labarge.
Thank you, Councilor Sheriff. Just a question to the mayor. It's September 2nd. We're doing one reading on this. And will it be coming back again for city council on the 22nd of September? And are we going to be referring this to city service?
So I will be submitting I'll be submitting the nomination, the appointment at your September 22nd meeting, because by your rules, administrative orders only require one reading. So tonight would be the one reading. And so I would submit it, and then you would have to refer it to city services, or by charter it has to be referred to a committee. So you would have to do that. So whether you would want to hold a special meeting, or do it at the October meeting, embedded in the city council, I'm not sure. That would be up to you. But so yeah, it would have to follow the normal appointment process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I will echo what Councillor Dwight said, that I'm very glad that this conversation is a very sort of different conversation than it's been in the past. And this has not been a divisive issue. And also, as everyone has said, that we are relieving the clerk of that inherent conflict of interest of the person being charged of elections also being on the ballot. So I'm very glad that this change is happening. So I'm going to remind people, this is a public hearing. If anyone from the public wants to weigh in or ask a question, or just share anything, you are very welcome to. But seeing, Ezekiel Baskin. Oh, hold on. There you go.
I have one question just out of curiosity, which is, so the same points about sort of qualification for the clerk's position, I guess I'm curious how those are different for the mayor's position, which also could be like someone wholly unqualified could be elected mayor. I'm just curious about that. That's a whole other kettle of fish, but I guess it just, I'm interested what differentiates.
I guess I would point to the differentiation I made before between a policymaker versus someone who is, carrying out strictly carrying out administrative duties. So in our elected system, both at the state and federal and here at the local level, the qualifications are that typically that you're, of a certain age and that you're, a registered voter in whatever locality or district you're running in, and those tend to be the only qualifications. And then really, because it's a political office, then really it's up to the voters to decide. So I think that would be the difference, and it's the same for city council and school committee. And if you read the Constitution, the qualifications for president or senator or House, I mean, we can debate whether there maybe should be some more qualifications, but I think therein lies the distinction between a professional non-policy making role versus a governmental policy making official. That's my best answer.
Councillor Dwight, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I was just going to respond briefly what the mayor just said. Ditto. And by way of example, all you have to do is look to the last 4 years, and you can understand difference between, say, all the people who function under the president, for instance, a president that we had who could be wholly unqualified, and at the same time, he's the policymaker, is the popular choice, and so on. But the distinction of mayor, the policy generator, policy maker, as opposed to essentially the policy implementers who are the department heads. And I think, and that's always been the conversation, the thrust of the conversation when we discussed this for the assessor's position, the treasurer's position, and now the clerk's position. This has happened over time. They used to all be elected, and the reason they were elected was it was to create to make it difficult for corrupt systems to set in place. But at the time, being a treasurer didn't require the level of sophistication it does now. The same is true with the assessment. The same is with the city clerk. It was historically basically, your small parochial community and dealing with things on a far more intimate level, and then now suddenly we, despite ourselves, we became a little more sophisticated, and the world moved a little farther and faster, and requires actually someone with a skill set. Hopefully, requires someone with a skill set. I mean, it doesn't. Let's be honest. Even an appointment can be terrible, but that's on whomever becomes the executive, right? So, and also the body, this body here in this case, that approves that appointment. So, but those distinctions are worth making, and I understand what you're asking. I think it's a very good question, and you do see some communities that have an appointed town manager, in which case those appointees have some flexibility that mayors don't have. That was part of the discussion about why for the 4-year term. But now I'm starting to wander way off of what we were talking about, and I will shut up.
Whatever. Welcome.
Yes, hello. So actually let me lower my hand. So from my little hometown that I came from, actually, they just made the same decision in this case, I think it was a town manager. And so they opened it up so that there could be more qualified people coming from outside of the community. But I do have a question in terms of so in terms of like when this position becomes open or available, is this something that goes out into public notice in the region? And so then there would be a number of candidates that the mayor could pick from? Or is it just something that's kind of like, it becomes available, it sort of becomes known to the mayor? Or how would the availability of that position be publicized to increase the possibility of the qualification of candidates?
So in the current situation where we have had a now twice elected city clerk, who also served as the assistant city clerk, and previous to that served as the clerk to the council, and so is a very experienced city clerk and has run elections, including ones during COVID, and tackled early voting. And my intention is to appoint the incumbent who was running unopposed for re-election in November. But hypothetically, in the future, when the current city clerk retired or left and took another job, it would be treated like any other professional position, and it would be put out, it would be advertised like a professional position. So it would appear with all the other job listings, and it would be open to applicants all over the country who wanted to apply. And then it would go through the normal sort of department head hiring process. But it's also then subject to confirmation by the city council. So there'd be that check, which the charter builds in for department heads. So that would be the process. But in the current case, my intention is to appoint the person that is the city clerk, who's sort of being converted mid-term to appointed.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none.
Move to close the public hearing, please.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councillor Dwight, seconded by Councillor Labarge to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Roll call, please, Laura, on closing the hearing.
Councillor Foster,
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councillor Labarge,
Yes.
Councillor Maori,
Oh, hold on, Councillor Maori must have gotten booted out. There you go.
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Quinlan,
Yes.
Councillor Shara,
Yes.
Councillor Thorpe,
Yes.
and Councillor Dwight.
Yes.
Okay, the hearing is closed and we will take up that order later on the agenda. Moving to updates from the council president and committee chairs. I just wanted to note for the public that our second meeting in September is going to be actually on Wednesday, September 22nd, which is unusual for us. We usually would meet on, as we know, first and third Thursday. That Thursday had scheduling issues, and there were going to be some counselors who would not be able to attend. So we have moved it to Wednesday, the 22nd, same time, 7 o'clock, but I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that change. Any other, Councillor Maori?
Yeah, so the City Council Rules Select Committee next meeting is Wednesday, September 15th at 6 p.m. And as usual, the agenda will be posted 48 hours prior.
Great, thanks. Any other chairs? And we can move into 1-minute announcements. Councillor Nash. You're muted.
Thank you, Council President. So, so where can somebody volunteer and get exercise, assist in traffic calming, assist overworked parents, and also work with happy kids?
I know.
That's the walking school bus. That's right, Council President. And this year, the Bridge Street School walking school bus starts its 5th year of providing volunteer trips to school for kids coming down both Bridge Street and coming up William Street and Pomeroy Terrace. We're still looking for volunteers. And it's very easy to sign up. You go to the Bridge Street PTO homepage and look for the tab for the walking school bus. Requirements to become a driver are simply to fill out a query. And once that's cleared, then you have a chance to head out with the bus and walk to school and solve all of these vexing issues for our school community. So, and I'll say, as somebody who's been with it from the beginning, it's a great way to start the day and feel like you're doing something really great. And then you stop at a place downtown and get a coffee, and then you walk home and you start with your workday. It's really a great experience. So anyway, so that's my first announcement. Could I do another one real quick?
Yep.
Yeah, it has to do with, from ordinance review. Keith Benoit and Councillor Thorpe and I are working on getting out information on housing security. And we're working on drafting an ordinance to somehow codify having landlords provide information for tenants. But in the meantime, Keith Benoit has actually put much of this information up on the city page under affordable and fair housing. So it's already there. We are still working on the manner in which we're going to drive people to that information, but just letting counselors know, or anybody who's listening know, that if they have questions about resources around housing security, how to pay your rent, what kind of legal resources are out there, they're on the city webpage under affordable and fair housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Councillor Maori.
So in Leeds this Saturday at 9 a.m. at the Grove Avenue bike path entrance, there'll be a group of volunteers pulling spilt grass, led by Tom from the planning department. Spilt grass is an invasive grass that we're finding more and more each year in Leeds, and it really kind of kills a lot of diversity under it, the way it grows. So we need to get it before it seeds, and it's really easy to pull out. Just bring some gloves, and it's the kind of thing you can do and be social and really help our ecosystem here in Leeds. So that again, it's September 4th, this Saturday, 9 a.m. at the Grove Avenue bike path entrance. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, any other announcements? Seeing none, Mayor Narkowitz, you had communications for us, yes?
Yes, thank you, Council President. I mainly wanted to update folks on the ongoing recruitment process for the Department of Community Care Implementation Director position. This is the kind of project manager position that would be tasked with helping to establish and implement and organize the Department of Community Care that was recommended by the Northampton Policing Review Commission and funded in the FY 2022 budget. I did want to announce that we are extending the deadline for applications until September 24th. That's basically 3 weeks from tomorrow. We felt that we wanted to have an opportunity to try to cast a larger net and try to encourage more applicants. I think most of it happened over the summertime, and we're now transitioning, past Labor Day. So we wanted to allow just a little bit more time to see what we got in terms of additional applications. So that posting has been updated, and we'll be pushing it out on our social media, and it'll obviously, we're going to be continuing to push it out to as many groups and organizations that we can, both in the United States and in Canada, and see if we can really draw a broad pool. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. It's already updated on the city website. And then my hope after that is to immediately have a screening committee go through applications and identify the most qualified candidates and begin interviewing, hopefully to have some recommendations for an appointment. I know a question came in today from Laura, which I figured I would just answer now, from Councillor Labarge about the appointment process from there, and whether or not it would come to the city council or not come to the city council. Because this is sort of the project manager position and not the actual department head, and because part of the process that I laid out in my budget message, similar to the conversation we were having earlier about the charter change and needing to then update the administrative code to actually create the position as a department head that's appointed before the appointment would come forward. When the department is sort of fully formed, and that blueprint I referred to in my budget message was then available for the next mayor, then the next mayor, two of their primary tasks would be to obviously submit the budget for FY 2023 for the department, as well as an administrative order kind of formally creating the department and the mission and all of the other aspects of it that would be included in the formally in the administrative code. So my intent was not to treat this like a department head, as I think we had discussed earlier in this process. And I do think time is important here. So I wanted to answer that question as well, that Councillor Labarge raised. So that wouldn't be coming to city services. We're also getting to a point in the term where it's going to be more and more challenging as well with the council term ending. So my hope is to have that listing close on the 24th, and then to quickly move forward with a review process and an eventual appointment, so we can get that person on board.
Thank you.
Councillor Foster.
Mayor, thank you for the update. I appreciate it. A question that's come up in my mind is where I think extending the deadline makes a lot of sense, and that we should get the broadest pool of applicants we can. One concern I have is if we're not bringing someone in to launch the department, potentially we're looking at October, possibly even November, just thinking forward through the timeline. Some of the funding that's been allocated, can that be carrying over into the next fiscal year? I don't know the status of the grants that are out there. Just trying to think through all the pathways that can give this department the best sort of launch when somebody's on board.
Yeah, so obviously all departmental funds other than capital funds that are encumbered, those kind of, they don't roll over into the next fiscal year. They when the fiscal year ends, unexpended funds then move to free cash, and then come back to the city later in the fall. But obviously the budget would, the baseline budget would be there. The funding that we are getting from the state, for example, the earmark, that obviously would not be tied to the city budget process. And I should also let you know that we've also applied for another state grant, a competitive state grant through the Department of Public Health. We submitted an application recently for $450,000 for this program. which is through an Alternatives to Policing grant through the Department of Public Health. I attended a kind of a bidders conference on it. We submitted a letter of intent and we filed a full application. We don't have an indication of what the time frame is, but this is a recognition by the state that there are many communities in Massachusetts, including right here in the Valley, that are looking at these alternative approaches to public safety. And so this was a specific grant set up by the Department of Public Health specifically for that purpose. So we do have an application pending on that. So that would also be another significant source of funding for some of the first-time, one-time kinds of startup costs for this type of department. So we don't know when we'll hear about that, but we'll be keeping an eye on it. So, but those kinds of things would remain, and then obviously, as certainly unspent monies could be reallocated within the fiscal year to other activities. But once the fiscal year ends, operating funds do not stay or carry over. They have to then be reappropriated in the next budget year.
Councillor Mayari?
Yeah, I have two questions. The first is, so are you saying, Mayor, that in the next mayor with the administrative order, that will be the time that council gets to weigh in on the department head? Would the hiring process be formalized in a way that at that point the candidate would come, or the temporary person come to the council or city services? Or are you saying that we're not going to get a chance in the process as city council to kind of vet this department head?
So what I'm saying is that the project manager is not the department head.
Okay.
And if you read the job posting, it makes it clear that the person is not disqualified from applying to be the eventual, but it's really somebody with a little bit of a different skill set, maybe some of the same skills, but basically somebody who can come in and sort of from scratch build this department and create job descriptions and do all of the work with the mayor to create an advisory body that the NPRC recommended, and work with the other key departments like dispatch and the health department, and then also doing the stakeholder outreach and the outreach to all of the folks who would be end users of this department, those with lived experience and those who are facing substance use and behavioral health crises. So all of that work would hopefully inform what the actual final structure of the department would look like. How many staff, how many FTEs, what the job titles would be, all of the things that would go into doing that. This project manager would be working on, and then obviously you'd be then recruiting somebody to be the director of that department, which would be formalized in the administrative code, like all of our other departments. And so that would be the department head that would be that would come forward to the council for confirmation, like the city clerk and other department heads.
Okay, I see. So the project manager, that's why it's been a temporary role, and it could kind of morph, and in theory that person could apply to be the director, or it could just kind of be a discrete position that ends when the department is set up and there's candidates for the department head. Correct? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Interestingly, I'll just say, I talked about a project manager or a project director in the budget message, and we did formalize the title to call it implementation director, and it's graded and all that. But I will tell you that one of the requirements of this state grant is that the city have a identified project manager for this project, and that we submit a resume for this project manager, that they are the designated person within the city who is the point person for establishing this, whatever this new service, depending on what city and what they're attempting to do. And so it sort of interestingly aligns with that state grant model. So
I guess it would be helpful for these state grants to get that project manager there, correct? So that you can, it sounds like
it would, yes, it would. I would still say we're probably further along than a lot of other communities, because a major part of the grant was also community engagement, and so we're a lot farther along because we had the year-long NPRC process, and we have a report, and there was 70 plus public meetings and hearings, and so I think we're going to be able to demonstrate, as opposed to someone else who just saw the listing and said, hey, let's do this. I think we're going to be in a much better, more competitive position. So yeah, it definitely is incumbent upon us to get that person in place, and yeah, that they would be also the person reporting to the grant agency as well, and making sure that we're filing reports with the grant agency. So that would also be part of this. Again, I'm if we get the grant, but yeah, that would be the role. So yeah, the department head would come later, and again, doesn't mean that the person who applies couldn't apply to be the department head eventually. But it may in fact be a different person with a different set of skills, in terms of actual organizational management and setting something up, and the personnel and budgetary factors, versus someone who's an operational department director. So
right. And if I may ask one other question, which was I've gotten questions myself about the screening committee, the makeup of it, the rubrics, and I don't know. I've talked a little bit with others about it, but if you have any framing around the screening committee,
sure.
I assume you're going to compile it after, or at the same time, or after that, you get the candidates' CVs in.
Yeah, I mean, I've already been putting together, forming a small screening committee, which has been my longstanding practice whenever I've hired senior level staff, and I want to have a combination of key department heads. I want to have elected and sometimes appointed representation on that screening committee, and then I always try to have community members with some expertise as well. And so my current process I'm in right now is I'm putting together this screening committee, and I am intending to have 2 key department heads be part of it. The health director, Meredith O'Leary, as well as Kelly Schutze, who is the director of the Public Safety Communications Department, or dispatch. I think those were 2 of the key departments that were highlighted in the NPRC report as being really important to the success of this department. So those would be serving. I've asked the council president to serve and represent the council on this screening committee. Obviously, she was involved in the creation of the NPRC and the appointment of the NPRC, and is your elected president. So I've asked her to serve. And I've asked Booker Bush from the Human Rights Commission, and he was also a former member of the NPRC, to serve, and he has willingly said he would do that. And then I'm in some conversations with 3 community members who have either a combination of professional experience or most importantly, lived experience, with an emphasis on substance use and mental health. And so I'm in some conversations around that, including having some good conversations with a representative of the Wildflower Alliance, who participated in the process heavily and was heavily cited in the report, and a local outreach worker who does work in recovery work and houseless outreach as well as someone who works for a leading behavioral health agency, although not directly in Northampton. Because I also want to have some objectivity and I want to have some expert eyes, but I frequently find it's helpful on these processes to have, if it's a department head, that's easy because, you can get a department head from a different community to be part of the process who can bring that expertise to bear without any of the baggage or biases of being in the community or working in the community. So that's my current structure, and my hope is that should be all in place. And once we have the close, it'll be their process to review resumes and develop questions and hold interviews and then recommend the highest, strongest candidates forward to me for hopefully final appointment of an implementation director. So that's the process that I've laid out, and we'll see. Again, we're hopeful that we'll receive more applications over the next 3 weeks.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions about Councillor Foster?
More of a comment, Mayor, as you were talking, I just wanted to say how grateful I am to hear that people with lived experience will be a part of the screening committee. So thank you for including that very important demographic.
You're welcome.
Okay, seeing no other comments on this, we are going to move down to the consent agenda. I will read the consent agenda and ask for removals for discussion because there's no discussion on the consent agenda. We have the minutes of August 19th, 2021. And we have appointments to various committees. These all received a positive recommendation from City Services at their July 26th meeting. So this is to the Council on Aging, Michael Ford, 779 Bridge Road in Northampton. The terms July 2021 to June 2024. To the Historical Commission, Stephen Moga, 89 Marion Street. This is the Western Mass chapter of the American Institute of Architects nominee. The term is August 2021 to June 2024. This is to fill a vacancy of that representative. Then to the Trust Fund Committee, Joseph Wilhelm III, 54 Prospect Street. Term August 2021, June 2024 to fill a vacancy. Urban Forestry Commission, Robert Postal, 44 Washington Avenue. July 2021, June 2024, the term reappointment to the Whiting Street Fund Committee, Mary John M.J. Adams, 60 Norwood Avenue in Florence. August 2021, June 2024, this is to fill a vacancy. Appointments to the Whiting Street Fund Committee, these again have all received positive recommendations. This is Michael Shaughnessy, 575 Bridge Road, July 2021, June 24, reappointment. Joseph Misterka, 312 Chesterfield Road, July 2021, June 2023, reappointment, and Andrea Murray, 54 Day Avenue, 2021, June 2023, reappointment. That is the consent agenda. I'm going to ask for the removal of MJ Adams. Any other removals?
Move approval with the exception of MJ Adams, please.
Second.
Roll call, please, Laura, on the consent agenda.
Councillor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councillor Labarge,
Yes.
Councillor Maori,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Quinlan,
Yes.
Councillor Shara,
Yes.
Councillor Thorpe,
Yes.
Councillor Dwight,
Yes.
and Councillor Foster.
Yes.
Move to approve MJ Adams, please.
Second.
This is made and seconded. Mayor Narkowitz, do you have a?
I can wait until after this vote. Yeah.
Okay. So I just need to disclose that MJ Adams has contributed to my campaign. That doesn't exclude me from voting on this appointment, but I need to disclose that information. Any other discussion on the appointment of MJ Adams to the Whiting Street Fund Committee? Seeing none, roll call, please, Laura.
Councillor Labarge,
Yes.
Councillor Maori,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Quinlan,
Yes.
Councillor Shara,
Yes.
Councillor Thorpe,
Yes.
Councillor Dwight,
Yes.
Councillor Foster,
Yes.
and Councillor Jarrett.
Yes.
Okay, that appointment's been approved. Now, Mayor Narcoitz, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to actually just thank the Committee on City Services on behalf of Treasurer Collector Bissell and Finance Director Nardi for holding an expedited meeting to take up those appointments. We really wanted to get the Whiting Street Trust Fund Committee fully operational and everyone reappointed, and so that they're really wanting to complete their work this fall and get a round out of distribution. So I appreciate you expediting that so that we could get everybody reappointed and legal, as it were, to continue their work. So I just want to thank you. Thank you, Councillor Labarge.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we are now going to recess for the Finance Committee. Laura, will you please take the role of Finance?
Councillor Labarge,
Here.
Councillor Quinlan,
Here.
Councillor Shara,
Here.
and Councillor Thorpe.
Here.
Okay, we only have 2 items on the agenda, and that's the approval, or 1 item with two sections. Approval of minutes from previous meetings. This is minutes of June 17th, 2021 and August 19th.
Move to approve the minutes, June 17th, August 19th, 2021.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Labarge, seconded by Councilor Thorpe. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, roll call please, Laura.
Councillor Labarge,
Yes.
Councillor Nash. Oh, I'm sorry. Councillor Quinlan,
Yes.
Councillor Shara,
Yes.
and Councillor Thorpe.
Yes.
Okay, those have been approved and no other business. So
Move to adjourn.
Second.
motion made by Councilor Quinlan, seconded by Councilor Thorpe to adjourn. Roll call please, Laura, on adjourning.
Councillor Labarge,
Yes.
Councillor Quinlan,
Yes.
Councillor Shara,
Yes.
and Councillor Thorpe.
Yes.
And we are back in the full council, and it makes sense that we have no financial orders on first reading since we had none in finance. So we're moving on to second reading, 21.306, in order to appropriate transportation infrastructure enhancement funds to hotel bridge improvements. The second reading.
Move to second reading, please.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Dwight, seconded by Councilor Jarrett. Is there any discussion on second reading? Seeing none, roll call please, Laura.
Councillor Maori,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Quinlan,
Yes.
Councillor Shara,
Yes.
Councillor Thorpe,
Yes.
Councillor Dwight,
Yes.
Councillor Foster,
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett,
Yes.
and Councillor Labarge.
Yes.
Okay, that passes in second reading. Moving on to orders 21.310, warrant for September 28th, 2021, preliminary election on second reading.
Approve.
Second.
Motion's made by Councilor Labarge, seconded by Councilor Dwight. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call please, Laura.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Quinlan,
Yes.
Councillor Shara,
Yes.
Councillor Thorpe,
Yes.
Councillor Dwight,
Yes.
Councillor Foster,
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councillor Labarge,
Yes.
and Councillor Maori. Maybe stepped away.
Yes.
Oh,
There you
Yes.
go.
My
Okay.
internet's acting up. Apologies.
Okay. That passes on second reading. We will have a preliminary election. We're on to 21.310 in order to submit a measure to the voters at the 2021 regular city election. This is on second reading.
Move second reading, please.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Dwight, seconded by Councilor Foster. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please, Laura.
Councillor Quinlan,
Yes.
Councillor Shara,
Yes.
Councillor Thorpe,
Yes.
Councillor Dwight,
Yes.
Councillor Foster,
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councillor Labarge,
Yes.
Councillor Nash.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped Councillor Maori.
Yes.
Thank you. That's everybody.
Okay, great. That passes on second reading, and we're at 21.317. This is an administrative order to amend the City of Northampton Administrative Code. This was the order that we had the hearing on earlier. Just to remind people.
Move to approve, please.
Second.
Motion made by Councillor Dwight. I'm not sure who the second was.
Get 3 of them.
Oh, 3 of
Can we,
us.
can we pick one, please?
Just pick
Councillor
anybody.
Nash's birthday. He gets the
Yeah.
second. Okay. So this is the administrative order.
Ooh.
What the hell?
Happy birthday. This is to amend the administrative code. Again, this is about the city clerk. So it reads established, there shall be an office of city clerk under supervision of a city clerk. It is striking elected by the voters of Northampton, making this an appointed position. Discussion, Councillor Nash.
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize that, first of all, the work of the Charter Review Committee. They took this very seriously, and I think their recommendation was the right one. I also want to recognize that this discussion's been going on for over a decade in my mind. That I know that there were times where Councillor Dwight and I, when I wasn't on council, we would discuss this very topic. And you can tell by his comments earlier tonight that he's been long part of this discussion that the city has been having around how to make this switch. And that and I think it's very much the right thing to do. And I just want to do a shout out to both Clerk Mazza and Clerk Powers, for, as the 2 elected clerks that I worked with, and thank them for their service. And now that we're moving on from that form of office, I just wanted to recognize that change is happening, and it was kind of a hometown Northampton thing to have an elected city clerk. We're going to move beyond that into a more professional way of setting things up. But I think that they both handled the office tremendously well. So anyway, I'm going to be voting yes, and I want to thank everybody for all their hard work around this.
Hear, hear. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please, Laura.
Councillor Shara,
Yes.
Councillor Thorpe,
Yes.
Councillor Dwight,
Yes.
Councillor Foster,
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councillor Labarge,
Yes.
Councillor Maori,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
and Councillor Quinlan.
Yes.
Okay, that passes in first, single, and only reading. Friends, that's it.
I'm just going to point out that Laura's going to miss by 20 minutes on her prediction. Just I don't want to rub it in. Usually spot on, but I think anyway. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll
Second.
it.
Motion.
That's 5 seconds.
Motion's made by Councillor Dwight, seconded by all, but Councillor Quinlan gets the credit. Roll call, please, Laura, on adjourning.
Councillor Thorpe,
Yes.
Councillor Dwight,
Yes.
Councillor Foster,
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councillor Labarge,
Yes.
Councillor Maori,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Quinlan,
Yes.
and Councillor Shara.
Yes. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Happy birthday.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's your
Thank
birthday
you,
present for
everybody.
real.
This is the shortest meeting ever. since I've-
Rachel, you'll be
Gotta be.
happy.
Good
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good weekend,
Bye.
everyone.
Good night.
Happy birthdays.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.